everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color. I'm Jed Taufer. Thanks for listening. You know, my wife Vicki and I have owned and operated our photography studio, V Gallery, for 20 years now. White House has been our lab for the last 16 of those years, and we could not be happier. White House is a family-run business, just like ours. If you haven't already, check them out at whcc.com. And if you want to drop me a line, feel free to email me at jed@whcc.com. I was a Boy Scout for a couple years in my very early teens. I remember learning many things about camping, canoeing, conservation, and the like. For the most part, I really enjoyed the Scouts. We had a lot of fun. What I didn't realize at the time, though, was that I was also learning, or more like absorbing, concepts like honesty, loyalty, and hard work. I was building my character without realizing it. Our motto was be prepared, and I think many of the things I took from the Boy Scouts stemmed from that. Jeff Dachowski takes that motto very seriously. He's one of the funniest people you'll ever meet, but when it comes to business, he's ready for anything, and it's served him well through the years. He's also a huge New England Patriots fan, so of course, we talked about Tom Brady.
What I love about Tom actually is it's one of the philosophies we have, like a joke all the time about, you know, an amateur practices till they get it right, and a professional practices till they get it, till they can't get it wrong. Right. And that's what I liked about Tom. His work ethic was he pretended in his head. I call it. It's actually a term called constructive delusion. Have you ever heard of that? It's pretty neat, where you've convinced yourself of what's going to happen, and more than likely or not, you've actually created it happening. So Tom pretended every day that he was going in. For all the games that he was a second string, he got up every morning saying, today's my day. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to do it. And he practiced like he was the starting quarterback. He ate like he was the starting quarterback. And he knew the plays. Like he did not sit on the side waiting for his chance. He was ready.
So when it happened, he
was ready. And the Beatles, you know, in the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, they talk about the Beatles, that they played Germany in the clubs for years and years. And they spent 10 hours a day playing. They were ready. So when they became famous, they had their hits. They already had gone through all those struggles that a band goes through about finding the identity of who the main songwriter is. And so, you know, in the time, there's lots of one-hit wonders that happen because four kids get together in a Birmingham basement. They play one jangly song. It goes big, and then they hate each other 8 weeks later. So there's no more music. Well, the Beatles had been forced to live together in a small apartment in Germany. They had already worked out for almost 2 years, I think. They worked out all their interpersonality issues.
Well,
or most of them. So but they became new ones. But they were ready to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of thing. Like a lot of it's, you know, it's kind of like a Boy Scout thing. But he was prepared, and I think in business, if we're prepared, we look like pros.
Well, what does it look like for us?
Yeah, so for me, I think it involves like understanding that you don't have a single sync cord for your strobes. You know, if you're gonna go shoot a job, you better have a couple, like 4 or 5 sync cords, I have one for all of my strobes in all of my cars, and I have a pack of cards in every car just waiting to be used. It sounds crazy, but you forget either one of those things, and with your assistant or you're driving back somewhere to get something, and you've effectively lost that job. Now, cameras break, they're dropped, lenses malfunction, things like that. No one expects you to have 6 or 7 of those, but when for $100 you can fill your car with emergency things to cover you. You know, you're in the bathroom and you drop four packs of 1 terabyte cards in the toilet. Like, you've got to have a backup. And I don't mean to, I'm not talking backup. I mean, it's just about being prepared. And it's understanding, in business, we have to know what our objections our clients are typically going to hear or say, that is. And we need to be ready with a piece of authentic communication back to them.
This is like going into a sale.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the sale and it's the shooting. It's the whole part of like from when that first phone call happens. If someone makes an inquiry, whether it's email or my method is, okay, so I need to know what they're going to ask because I know what they're going to ask, and I need to have an answer that makes sense and is authentic to me. And when I show up at a job, I need to be prepared mentally for the job. I need to have the gear in my car. I need to know what I'm supposed to shoot. In the sale, I need to know what I shot and what they want to, how they want to present their art in their home, or the client has a campaign they want work. These are the things I need to know going in. And so for me, it's about being prepared all the way to the end, all the way to the delivery or the installation. Like I need to know what kind of walls I'm putting it in. So it's just a general idea of let's not fly by the seat of our pants. Let's be prepared to handle whatever comes my way.
I was watching these talks, and these two guys, they get up and they do these Q&As at the end of their talks, and they never know, quote unquote, they never know what's going to be asked, right?
Yeah.
But at one point, one of the guys, and I've seen dozens of their talks, one of the guys was like, you know what, there's 20 questions that people ask in different forms. You know, they word this a little bit differently. They word that a little bit differently.
Where's the bathroom?
But there's 20. Well, that's always my first one. But I was struck by that, and I had never really thought about it that way before, because they always seem so ready for any question, right? Like someone asks a question and they give this great articulate answer. Mm-hmm. And his whole reasoning was, well, because there's only 20. If you know the answers and you're ready for these 20 questions, no one is ever going to, and he said this, no one is ever going to ask anything outside of those 20 questions, in all seriousness.
Isn't that interesting? I wonder if that's a psychological thing. Maybe. About like some base grouping of psychology, like within the brain or within our culture. I'm guessing it must be multicultural, like not just US or
right. It's
so like there's like across all cultures and backgrounds. Like there's 20 things that in our like DNA we need to know or we think to ask.
Well, what I was wondering, like he's extremely experienced, and you're experienced too. You're not.
I started last year. Yeah, new photographer. I got a Canon Rebel, went to Best Buy, and I started a Facebook page, and there I was. You know.
Well, answer me this real quick then, because then we can keep going, because this is a good thread. But tell me who you are.
Oh yeah. Hey, it's Jeff Dachowski.
Yeah.
I'm Jeff Dachowski. My studio is in Bedford, New Hampshire. We photograph families and seniors, children, a fair amount of commercial campaigns, like for a lot of like magazine covers and hospitals and colleges and that sort of thing. Basically, we photograph people. We're generalists. We do not subscribe to the notion of a complete niche in their studio, and it works for a lot of my friends. But for me, I'm not confident enough that I've got enough business where my work is good enough. So I better have a little bit of a wider shot. In fact, I joke all the time that people only buy my images because someone they love is in them,
right?
You know, because I'm not known as a stellar photographer. I'm saleable, and I don't have any false delusion, if you will, that wow, people are going to buy my stuff because it's really good. It's saleable. It's good. I mean, it's saleable. Okay. You know, you're not going to hang. My point is, you're not going to buy one of my family's portraits to put on your wall. Like it's so good, but like you have James Dean walking down a boulevard of broken dreams.
Yeah,
that's going to have a mass appeal. I'm not shooting iconic stuff like that.
Okay. Well,
I'm creating heritage and legacy for people. That's my goal, so that in the end they look back and that it provides joy every time they walk by it. They think of their family, their loved ones, and it also comforts them when those family and loved ones have moved to a better place. Like those, don't get me wrong, I'm not negating what it is that I do. Mm-hmm. I'm just not making it all about me. Mm-hmm. It's about them, and I'm there to talk to them and get them comfortable and let them be who they really are. Like that's my goal.
You're pretty experienced though, really. I mean, you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I shot my first wedding in 1989. And
okay.
my wife, I started dating my wife in 91, and she changed my backs to my film, so I was shooting 220 film, and she would run, at a wedding, and she'd be in the back of the church madly pulling out a roll of 220 and
yeah.
And then I'd be like, like medic, like in the church. That's what it felt like shooting film in those days on medium format. You're like, medic, medic. And she would come running up with a film back, and I'd click. Yeah. And then they take it off and pull the dark side out and put it in your pocket. I mean, we used to carry dark slides in our pockets all the time, and then you'd start shooting away and you'd hope that everything was right. Cause if, you get two shots and you're like, oh, that then something's not right. You felt it. You could mechanically feel
well, you had to feel it.
You knew the feel. I mean, even the shutter there,
right.
Like you knew when your shutter died cause it didn't go anymore. It went, okay.
That's a great Foley work.
I hope that you can take those sounds and just make them my ringtone. You know,
I think we're going to license
I
them.
think you're gonna like. I think that's really the what White House's goal is to take licensing from my interview.
Yeah, we're grabbing Foley effects.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Oh my
yeah, but
goodness.
so our studio's in Bedford, New Hampshire. I'm on the PPA board of directors, master photographer, photographic craftsman. I love to compete. I'm a certified professional photographer. All those things I think are precursors for me, and who I hope for a lot of the industry. It's not about that your clients know that stuff there. It's about that you are prepared, that you've done some due diligence, you've learned your craft.
And
I get it right in the camera.
But how much of that is due to experience?
Well, I think, the first shot I did, the first commercial shoot I ever did, it's so embarrassing. So my dad was an advertising guy, and he sold specialty advertising stuff, pens, cups. There were no mouses then, so there was no mouse pads, but that sort of like thing, like he'd sell all these, I think it was ASE was the name of the company that produced all these different tchotchke things for companies all over the world, right? And so he sold that stuff. So one of his clients came to me and said, I need a new headshot. So she was a drug rep. And so we shot it in my mom's living room.
Perfect.
Of course it was. We shot it on film.
Yeah.
And I positioned her on a high wing chair, and I sat her down with my Yashica XX3 or whatever the body was, It was the cheap Pentax K100 knockoff. It wasn't, I couldn't afford the Pentax K100. I had the Yashica, the knockoff, and I got a little gooseneck. I had a red gooseneck reading lamp with a clamp on the bottom of it, like those little clamps that you see like in college, clamps to the side of a building.
I had a black
side of a door, and I placed it 7 or 8 inches below her face, and made her look like Bela Lugosi, and I shot the scene with tungsten light on daylight film. I delivered the proofs, and I charged her like $180, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to take over the world with the amount of money I'm making here. And
$180 is pretty good.
She bought a whole bunch of 4x6s for her, and it was so awful. I mean, it was...
Do you still have it?
I don't have that, and I wish I did, because I'd be like, let me tell you where I started.
Oh, man.
And so that's how I started. I was 17. I shot my first wedding at 18, and I'm supposed to do photography.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, there's no doubt about it. I'm a musician as well, but when I realized that it wasn't going to work for me, I'm built like my DNA, my code is I talk to people. I like people. I'm an extrovert. So I recharge by talking to people. If I had been born into a different family, like a family that really pushed education, I probably would have been an architect because I love lines and shapes. And I think photographers and architects are very similar in their
line and shape,
left brain, right brain. There's a technical side, an artistic side, and a whole middle part that is like function. That's what I believe. I think that's why a lot of architects, I think, love photography, and why a lot of photographers love architecture.
That makes sense.
It's a pretty common thing. And so had I been born into a family that really pushed education like that, I probably would have found a love of buildings and shapes and weight loads, and all those things are really interesting to me, but I never had the math background to do it.
So a lot of experience, a love of people.
Yeah. So there's my DNA right there. Love all that stuff. It's me.
How much of your success is due to those two things alone? Because those are two big things. Like, you're talking about being prepared, being ready, and a lot of that comes from experience.
Yep.
But someone that's been doing this for a year or two, they don't have the experience. So how do they get where they need to be without that key ingredient?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's the experience is what you're really asking. How do you get good without experience? And the truth is, experience is just experience. There's that scene in that in the Infinity Wars when Loki says to Thanos, he says, I have some experience, and he says, you have failure. He says, failure is still experience. Right. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, like, and that's still experience. And so I have lots of experience. Yeah. It's disguised as failure, right? Initially, and if you step back and you go, okay, well, there's failure, but with that, it's either I win or I learn, that sort of mentality. So I always try to learn. I win or I learn. Yeah, either I win or and if I fail at something, I've learned something about it. Okay. For people who are a year into the business or 2 years in the business, I would rather you get experience talking to people and get good at your craft, before you try to launch a business, because they're two separate things. Getting good at your craft, talking to people, getting them at rest, knowing your camera in and out, all those things is one complete skill set. And we've all heard stories about people who have that skill set, right? And then you hear that they're awful to work with. Well, those are people who haven't taken the next step and say, I need to also be good with people.
It's true.
If you're an introvert, it's one of those things that you need to find whatever space it is. You need to know that this is literally a key. It is a key that you have to possess. It's like in the Matrix with the key maker. Without that key, you can't get past, you can't get through to success. So if you're an introvert and it's not in your nature to work with people, you need to find whatever psychological space to get there.
Right.
You have to, because people will not open up to you if there's no reciprocation.
So if you tend to be an introvert.
No, I'm an extrovert for sure.
I just mean a person.
Oh, if you, sorry.
I sense that you're an extrovert.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm an extrovert. Listen, just putting that down, write it down if you want, put it in your wallet and review a couple days a week. Jeff is an extrovert.
I believe that. But if someone is an introvert, if that's who you're addressing but they really want to get into photography, or they really want to become more of a photographer, and they're terrified of sales.
Yeah, sales and phone calls. I'm sorry.
Well, that's
another discussion, but
they're in a lot of ways they're very similar, because you're interacting with the client outside of the shoot.
Right.
And if someone is struggling with that, and I've talked to a few people that do, what do you say to them?
So my advice on it is funny, because I'm not an introvert. So when I say this, I'm not picking on people. I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling that way. The truth is, I don't want to say it's a condition. It's a personality type that I can't exactly understand, right? Just like someone who's an introvert can't exactly understand how I can be in a room of 2,000 people and leave feeling great, like, and talk and talk and talk. Other people who are introverts say this, I have to, take 2 weeks off and snuggle because it's too much.
Right.
So for me,
that's true. I'm more introverted than extrovert.
Yeah, I believe that's true. And we get along.
Snuggling sounds really better.
Yeah, snuggling is better. So we're going to pause this for a little bit of snuggle time. Is that what we need to do?
No, there's other caveats.
Okay, all right.
Come along with it. But when you bring up a room of 2,000 people, and I envision that, I think, ooh. And then you bring up snuggling, I think, oh, nice.
Yes, the ooh is better than that.
But the snuggling is with my children or my wife.
Well, that's a whole,
if you said snuggling with you, I'd be like, ooh, again.
Ooh, yeah, that's a ooh. So there's ooh, ew, and
ew.
Those are all different, all different things going on. But so for me, getting back to your question.
Yes.
If you understand that this is the only way, like there's only one way through this, and it's through. So like if I told you you're only going to survive this calamity by throwing the only way you can survive this calamity is by throwing a chair through this window and jumping 4 stories, that's your only chance of survival.
You're going to do it.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's not about if, like the if is so crazy, like you have to do this. So I would say like anything else, if you're trying to lose weight and you don't want to work out, you start by walking a third of a mile. And then you get up to walking a mile and whatever, like you build up to it. You understand you've got some confidence. If you have struggle talking with people, you come to something like Imaging USA. You say, I'm going to introduce myself to 3 people this week, or 3 people today, or whatever's just outside your comfort zone. Yeah. Carol, my wife, says all the time, and it's a phrase success lies just outside your comfort zone. And so if you have a hard time introducing yourself, go do it 2 or 3 times. And then you say, let's try it 5 times. And then all of a sudden it's not you don't have to you're not going to build up to like, I have to introduce myself to 150 people today. After you like introduce yourself to 10 or 12 people and know nothing terrible happens. Right. Because it's all about fear, right? Yeah. So if nothing terrible happens, then you say, okay, I actually can do this. Yeah. And I now have experience having good interactions.
Some of those aren't going to go well.
No, someone will be like, what's well? Hey, I'm Jeff. Great to meet you. Where are you from? Right. Hey, thanks for being here. Great. Right. Blah, blah, and goodbye. Like that's a perfectly great exchange. Sure. We're not being like, hey, I'm Jeff, and we're going to know each other the rest of our lives. So I hope you can take all my faults and failures and wrap them up right now. Like second one. Yeah. Like, here we go. Now, when I meet people that I actually know, I'm going to know the rest of my life. Like if I meet a new board member or something, I literally say to them, I'm Jeff, and give me a hug because I'm going to know you the rest of my life. like legit. Like I
You
know
do
I'm going
that.
to be working close with people.
Right.
And let's just start right now from a
Right.
position of love.
Okay.
Because that's where it's going to be.
Yeah.
So it actually ties right back to that experience question.
Mm-hmm.
Start by doing something. If you need to get experience shooting, go shoot. I don't care if you don't get paid to do it. I'd rather you photograph your friends and family until they're blue in the face
Right.
and get really good at them. They're not going to buy anything anyways.
Right.
They're never going to value what you do.
Right.
So you might as well use up your energy on them and learn your craft. And for the people skills event, just go meet 3 people or 1 person. If you're deathly afraid of it, or pick up the phone and make a phone call. Right now we're in a culture of a lot of people who are coming into the industry. Are younger photographers who have very little experience on the phone because electronic communication has been
Right.
their way of communicating.
Right.
So there's a natural anxiety, if you will, that kind of
actually
flows from
talk
that,
to somebody
to
on
talk
the
to people
phone.
because they're so worried that things are going to go bad.
Right.
I mean, I am the absolute grand champion of stepping up to a mic and saying the most ridiculous things. I mean, you have no idea. Like literally when I am asked to speak, Carol is like 2 seats back with a paper in her hand and she's tapping it going, script.
Stay on script.
Because
Right.
as soon as I drift, I'm like
Right.
Frodo Baggins, like I'm like insulting everyone in the group because I get a little nervous and I try to be funny. I drop a cultural reference nobody gets, and I usually get to it by thinking, I think I'm going to get to this, and to this. And I say the third thing with no reference to the other first 2 how I
Right.
got there. And
Right.
it's only funny to me. And I laugh, and I look around the room and know.
Like you're down a
literally,
rabbit trail and nobody's laughing, and that makes you nervous, and you digress further.
Yeah, and then I go, well, hey, can I drop some F words? How would that be?
like loosen everybody up with some
Gosh,
F-words.
yeah. Hey, you know what? You think your day's going bad? Ready for this? Because my day's going to be a train wreck in a second. So you can look at me and laugh and point.
But you, even your extroverted self, you
Yeah.
learn from that, and you have this self-awareness about you, right?
I do.
That you've developed. I'm assuming from more than one bomb thrown out to a crowd of 100 people, right?
I have bags and bags of bombs.
Your skin gets thicker,
It does.
right? So I guess what I'm trying to get to is because of you putting yourself out there, and whether it's in your people skills way or from a technical standpoint with a camera, if you do these things, you're learning and you're gaining this experience,
Exactly.
whether you even know it or not. Like if you photograph your friends and family for a year and you do it a bunch till, like you said, they're blue in the face, by the end of the year, you're going to know your camera in and out.
Yep.
And not even realize that you know your camera in and out.
You learn it by accident. And
Right.
most importantly, you haven't diluted your market by giving away sessions all day, every day. Right. So you just keep
Right.
photographing your nieces and nephews.
The people that aren't going to pay for it anyway.
They're not going to pay for it. It
Right.
doesn't matter what you do. They already don't value what you do because, you're the same guy who, did something ridiculous when you were 7 and they'll never forget that,
Right. So when it comes to an inquiry, right? An inquiry
Yeah.
or a sale, how much of that is based solely upon experience, like you learned it by accident, as opposed to how much of it is you're intentional and these things are going to come, and you walk into a sale and you're ready with like 3 or 4 different things.
Well, yeah, let's talk about an inquiry for a second.
Yeah,
That's
start there.
Yeah. So, I know from my experience what they're going to ask. Initially, when people ask questions I've never had, you kind of go, yeah. We've never photographed a monkey before. I don't understand. Like, you want to put him in a tutu with a samurai sword?
Right.
I'm sorry. Looking at my script.
Yeah.
That's
Monkey
not
with a
on there.
samurai.
Monkey, diaper, samurai sword. I don't have an answer for that. Just give me 1 second.
But it doesn't happen very much.
It doesn't happen a lot. No.
I mean, not just that thing, but it doesn't happen very much.
Again,
that
like you said, the 20 questions is probably, I'd
Right.
love to know what these 20 questions are because
Right.
it's probably it's like a crystal ball, really.
Right.
But so for me, when the inquiry comes in, I believe they want to book me. I believe that's something because it's people aren't moved by marketing anymore like they used to be. You can't just put an ad in a magazine and say, "Ooh, I want to get portraits made." I mean, like there's multiple layers, like onions being pulled back about
Sure.
why people choose you. So if they've gotten up the courage to call you, you likely already have them. Okay, they've chosen you. say people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So marketing wise, anything you can do to improve any of those three things or all of those three things are going to help you. In my world, so the inquiry comes in and I know kind of what they're going to ask, and I go through it, a very casual conversation. Actually, I talk just like this, so you call and say, hey, tell me about why we're photographing, who we're photographing, tell me what style, where's it going to hang in your home? What have you thought about? Like, I'm planting the seeds that I want to sell wall portraits because that's how I make my living. And I say, I run through a pretend, if you will, or it's really a truthful mental checklist, but I say, okay, so I always hated asking for money. So in my mental checklist, I had to ask for money. I had to learn how to ask for money. And so I would say things like, okay, let's see. So we're booked for the 13th at 4:00. We're going to photograph your family at the ocean. We've talked about clothing. We've talked about timing. Oh yeah. So we do prepare session fees, and they're $295. I make it as if it's just one more check, because it used to be a big deal to me. I'd be like, struggle. And then I realized it's actually just one more little barrier I need to get by. So I need to treat it like it's just a little barrier.
So instead of it becoming the climax of the conversation, which you don't want.
Right. And so that's great. I'm excited. I need money.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. And I need you to pay me lots of money.
Because that's how much of a lech I am. I can only do anything for you if you pay me, which of course is the truth. Right. But it sounds terrible when you say it like that. But you like to
present it in a way where it's just another thing.
It's just one more thing, and it should be just one more thing, because the payment, everyone understands. And that's what I talked about, authentic communication earlier. I talk to my clients about profit. I'm not afraid of it at all. At all. Because a lot of my clients are entrepreneurs or business people themselves. And I kind of joke and I go, well, if you want me to be here in 5 years, of course I want to sell you stuff.
Yeah.
I want you to buy things because that's how I provide for my family. You understand, you own a publishing business.
Right.
And they go, I totally get it. And all of a sudden you've talked about the thing that you don't want to talk about and they don't want to talk about, but you've done it in a really non-threatening way, and you've made it about them. They're not thinking about your profit. They're thinking about what they make for profit. And they go, you know what? Everyone thinks I'm a millionaire because of this.
Yeah.
But
they get it.
But it puts it on them to think about their present,
their
own position. Right. And now they're like, of course you need to make money.
I had a guy writing us a check one time, and he knew we were going on a vacation for the weekend, and he said, looks like I'm paying for your vacation.
Yeah, I've heard that before too.
And I said, you are.
Yeah. And I'm going to have a great time.
And I said, thanks. This is going to be a great weekend. Yeah. And it was almost like, I don't think he expected that response, but he respected that response.
It's totally true. This idea of authentic communication, and I'm not talking about like pre-set up, just in the can responses. I mean, you have to be authentic. We photographed the wedding for the Giants comptroller one day. Oh. And so he came to us. He was getting married in New Hampshire, but he works in New York. So a couple was from New York, but they got married in New Hampshire. And we met with them. And so chit-chatting, they book us. And he says to me on a follow-up phone call, he goes, do you know why we booked you? I said, I'm hoping because you liked me and my work was awesome. He's like, well, of course.
Right.
He goes, but there's other photographers who we liked and other photographers who we had good work. I said, I'm really afraid to ask, why did you book me? He says, because you spoke to us about profit. Oh. And we knew at that point that you were because your business was about making a living, that you were going to do everything you could to make us happy.
Very interesting.
And that kind of changed because I was doing it before, but then I started understanding personally that that's another outward sign that we can tell people that we're confident.
Right.
And it shows people,
right.
Yeah, I'm interested in making you happy because this is how I make my living.
This is how I eat.
And
right.
You're sending out, it's kind of almost like a pheromone. It's like a sales pheromone, if you will, that you send this out to the world that, I'm here to make a living, which translates to you being happy.
Right. Right. And because I'm going to give it all I got.
All I got because it's all I do.
Right.
As opposed to, well, I'm going to show up, I guess. You're not paying me much. When people use that justifying language as photographers and they go, well, I did this session because I hear, we're in education, of course, Mary Fist Taylor and I started this new thing called the Jam, which is a whole.
I'm seeing that.
Yeah. Yes. So, we talk to people and they say they ask questions like, I did this session and they talked to me and said, I just want a couple of prints,
Yeah.
Like the idea of minimizing language, it's a bit of a protective position the client puts themselves in. If they use the word just,
right,
or only,
right,
or little,
yeah,
like those are cue words for me to correct that mindset right
How do you
there.
correct them?
So if you say, I just want a couple 8x10s, they can say, well, are you familiar with our work? Oh, I am. I went this family photograph, this family, you did this, well, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen you. Okay. So you saw their wall portraits, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did. They're beautiful. Well, that's what we're known for. So we typically photograph for people who are looking to install wall art in their home.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about your home.
So you just go right. That's a great transition. It's a great segue.
Yeah. I wanted, right. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's well, I'm interrupting you because
that's where we want to like correct that mentality from the client, that minimizing language as early as we can and as often as we have to keep them on task. And if they just say, no, I only want an 8x10, then I say, we're probably not the best fit to serve you for an 8x10.
Because you legitimately don't want to go through your whole process.
Oh my God, it's hours and hours of work. That's why we can't. Right. I love, when people say, well, and this, we're not really talking pricing, but you know, I've been a White House user for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, exclusively, like everything I get nearly every single thing from you guys. Right. So, I think 8x10s are $2 or $2.10 or $2.30 or something, whatever they're under $3. Let's just say they're under $3. And I joke that the paper's free because the difference between an 8x10 and a 16x20 is about $20.
Sure.
Ish. Really? $20?
Right.
Like the value's not on the paper.
Right.
The paper's worthless. I mean, it's a conveyance of the image, right? Of course, but it's not the paper. There's no value in paper.
No.
So if I want a white piece of photographic paper, it's $2.40, mm-hmm. under $3. If you want my portrait on it, it's $1.50. Mm-hmm. And like it's simple. Like, I mean, that's just how it is. It's not about the paper. It's not about the mechanism that conveys the emotion. It's about the emotion behind the image. We joke all the time. Our price list doesn't have any calculations on it. Like I call them unanswered equations. So it doesn't say 16x20. It says 16. And we price it by what we sell by the short side, which I know everyone's like, you're out of your mind, but we sell by the short side.
You sell by the short side.
Oh, yeah.
We sell by the long side.
Absolutely. But we live in New England with short ceilings. So I want to get the highest measurement first in the ceiling and then run it the length based on the room. So we have lots of 7.5 foot ceilings to these old colonial houses that are 200 and 300 years old.
Of course.
And we have to pay for heat. Well, I mean, I know you guys do as well, but the Midwest has higher ceilings by nature. We do. And we don't. And so it's important for me to make sure that my height is right first.
Sure.
Because I have to work within a parameter, and then we fill the space.
Lots of panoramics.
Based on the shape of the family, And so we don't, it doesn't say 16x20, which is an unanswered equation. There's no equal sign that says 320 there. And your mind is working that. Mm-hmm. And when it comes down to it, that's math. And we believe that math is the enemy of love. Like when you get into math, like you're not thinking about how much you love your family. You're trying to answer an equation.
That's a pretty great quote though.
And we sell love. We're not selling math at all.
Math is the enemy of love.
That's it. Like 16x20, everyone's trying to go. And maybe it's just me, but I see my clients and they've asked me many times, how many 8x10s is that? Right. Like they're trying to figure out the math of it all. Right. And the last thing I want them to be doing is focusing on math.
Absolutely true.
I want them in love mode, which is why when we had a price list, which we don't even offer anymore, but when we had a price list, we used to have pictures of other people on their price list, And I look down and I look at them and go, oh, that's a nice picture of the beach. And I'm like, that's doing everything opposite of what I'm trying to do here. I'm focusing them while they're sitting in their room at their projection screen, looking at their own family portraits, and they're thinking about how they made a mistake going to do fall foliage because that beach portrait's fantastic.
Oh.
I mean, I'm literally drawing them into other people's portraits on my price list.
Right.
Why would I do that? Right. That's like saying, oh, and I can't sell that. That's like, you walk into Ruth's Chris and all they show is Chick-fil-A pictures. Like you're actually telling them, this is so important.
Yeah.
It's so important. You should be looking at other people's pictures while you look at your price list.
I've never in my life thought about it that way. And that is striking me.
I want them face forward in love with
laser
their
focused
love.
on their imagery.
And the menu, if you will, when we had one, should be so simple and clean that it shouldn't actually have any questions.
Right. The simplicity is a big piece.
I mean, it needs to look like a Zen menu, you know, like just almost nothing there.
A Zenu.
A Zenu. I like
There we
that.
Go.
There it is.
Did I give you something?
Yeah.
So I feel like you're giving me a lot. I want to.
Beep, boop, 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 boop.
I want to give.
Zenu.
I want to give it back.
Yeah, I don't think I appreciate zoodles. You know, have you ever had zoodles?
No.
Yeah, they're like noodles that are made out of squash.
No.
Yeah, zoodles. Anyways, so Zenu. I'm digging that. Copyright Jed Taufer,
Okay,
2019.
Right.
Trademark.
Right.
Yeah. So for us, that's how we do our price list. We've stopped. We don't even offer a price list anymore. We found that it's just a barrier.
Well, how does somebody know how much something's going to cost?
Just add it to the cart. Once it's added to the cart, and I go, yeah, well, this is a. I mean, if people ask us questions, again, the idea of authentic communication. They don't know what any of the other sizes of an 8x10.
So they're ordering, not knowing what anything costs.
Well, we give them ranges. We say, frequently we'll tell, let's say I'm photographing your family and you go, okay, so tell me about what this costs. I've never done portraits before. And I'll say, well, the session fee is this. And typically people spend between $2,500 and $8,000 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay. If that number doesn't scare them, I'm not trying to scare them. I'm setting up the scene for,
right.
I don't want them, the last time I want them to hear about a price is definitely not when they're sitting
you
down.
You want them to have a realistic expectation.
Well, portraits start around $600 and go up depending on size and finish and a couple of variations, but really it's about what you like.
Right.
Okay. Well, that sounds reasonable. I mean, no one ever says that sounds reasonable, but they make a decision in their head that this is what it costs. I'm usually doing phone inquiries or phone consults. And then we get to it. The numbers haven't changed. I haven't changed your prices. It's not a bait and switch. I present them 3 of our options. Which one do you like? And there's essentially a good, better, best method, the way we sell them.
Right.
And I like one presentation, and that's the middle one, which we've made to be the most profitable because people like to buy the middle.
Right.
People love the middle.
Generally, yeah.
Something. And so
it's not on the low end and it's not over.
Yeah. They feel this is up high and this is down low. And I feel like I'm not quite spending too much.
Right.
But so we typically sell the middle stuff, which is for us is what we call artisan. It's a White House photographic print mounted to canvas mounted on masonite, and we frame that, and then we sell lots and lots of those. And it fits our personal brand well, and it fits our region well.
Right.
I could see how some people say that doesn't fit my style of my.
Right.
I live in a really modern section of California. Well,
Sure.
of course, it's not going to make sense to you. For us, that's what we do.
Right.
But we stopped using a price list because we want them focused. And if they say, okay, so we project, we use Pro Select like most people do, and we project it on their room and say, this is a 16 by 24, or this we have a name, they're called minis. So this is a mini 24. We show it on their wall. They go, that's great. I love that. I said, make it official. They say, yep. I add it to the cart and the price is right there and we move on. You know why? Because it doesn't matter. It's just the price. We have put all this fear into it because we're afraid they're going to say, oh my God, that's $1,900, whatever.
Right.
And more times than not, if we make it a big deal, it'll be a big deal.
That's
if we
true.
if we think it's just another part of the equation,
Right.
then it becomes for most people, just another part of the equation. I'm not saying that people don't change their orders because they don't want to spend as much.
Right.
Of course, that happens to everyone. But most of the time I go, all right, that's the right size. That works for you, Mom, Dad. Yep. Add it to the cart. The price shows up when I add it. I don't hide the prices from them.
Right.
And they see the total grow, because the last thing I want to do is have them surprised. I want to let them see that total grow, and I'm not afraid of it. It's just money.
Well, and they're seeing that happening, so that at the end there's not this like big sticker shock where they're just like, oh, and how much was all that? And then you have to tell them one number that they're just hearing for the first time and seeing for the first time.
Right. And we never want to say it ever, ever, ever. If I have a choice, I would never say a number because it's always cheaper in your own head. Right. Or more importantly, you're applying whatever you think about it.
Right.
So you're like, okay, so your total is, are you ready?
Yeah.
$7,499.
What not to say?
I mean, it's okay. It's totally okay. I mean,
It'll be okay, you guys.
breathe through this. You got this, like that's what you said. In reality, what someone might be saying is, we have no idea. Honestly, people who look poor are wealthy sometimes. People who look wealthy are poor. So it's not my choice. My value as a human being does not have any bearing on whether they have the money to buy my product or not.
Right.
That is a huge thing.
Amen.
If I could give you one thing out there who are listening, that your value as a human being has no basis on whether they buy your product or not.
Wow. Preach.
So you tell them the price and it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is exactly, and and if they don't like it, they're not going to buy it.
Right.
And so what happened? What does that mean? If you get a bunch of those, it means your marketing is drawing in people who are not your ideal client.
Who are not your clients, right?
So, and I'm sorry, I know we're probably going to go long. I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
All right. So I went to New York this year. A couple times for Christmas. New York's a magical time. It's freezing cold, $35 old fashions. It's just a great time to go to New York.
$35 old fashions. Oh my God.
Except I'm not kidding.
Right? No, that's true.
And in fact, I paid a $35 for an old fashioned because it was a rooftop bar overlooking Rockefeller Center.
You're also paying for that, though.
I'm literally paying mostly for rent.
Mostly what you're paying.
$1 in alcohol, $34 in rent.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay it happily. Like I wasn't like, ooh, I'm still ordering 6 more. But I was like, guys, we're sitting with blankets looking over at Rockefeller Center from a rooftop bar.
Right.
This is what the experience is.
This is it. Yeah.
They have heaters set up for us with blankets.
Yeah.
This is great. But so I'm walking by, I think it was either Prada or Louis Vuitton, and I'm not buying anything in there. Right. I'm not. I mean, it's not my product line, but 2, it's just my wife loves to look at that stuff, but she would be mortified to have a $7,000 purse. She just would.
Yeah. Okay.
So they have all these windows, these beautiful windows, and they spend a lot of money creating this flash and shine and stuff to get you to come into the store. So we said, let's go in. So we walk in, we say hello to the sales associate. We look at some of the stuff. There's no prices on anything. We know we can't afford really, or we could afford, we could pay for it, but we're not going to pull the trigger on any of this stuff.
Right.
It's not for us. So I started thinking, I wonder how many of these Louis Vuitton employees or Prada employees are going to post on Facebook today saying, 5 people called me and no one booked. Like we see in our industry. We take it so personal. Prada, Louis Vuitton, etc. They don't care how many people don't book.
No.
They only care about how many people do buy or do book.
Right.
And so that they understood their marketing is laser targeted to some degree to a certain demographic, right?
Yeah.
And shotgun marketed to make that demographic feel good about the people who can't afford their product.
Interesting.
Okay, so they know that if I do a shotgun approach to build the Prada brand or the Louis Vuitton brand, fair enough. But really, all this is creating desire from the masses, which further makes it more desirable for the people who can afford it.
To the people that, can.
And they fully know that if people are in our shop oogling and eyeing about the stuff they want to do, there's only, it doesn't bother them at all.
Oh, right.
So we as photographers need to stop saying I'm marketing everywhere all over the world and people are seeing my stuff and they're not booking me because I'm too expensive. Well, it means that your marketing is not where it needs to be. It's not a pricing issue. It's a marketing issue. You're pointing your business, a shotgun approach to get people to call, but for whatever reason, what you're doing with your marketing is attracting folks who aren't anywhere near your target client. So and it's almost like you might be pointing it to the left and really your target market is just to the right. You need to move that shotgun approach and put your target market in the middle of that, not to the very end.
Right.
And there's some people who your target market aren't your target market, but they'll stretch. And that's why I say you want to put your target market in the middle so that you can get the folks on the ends,
on both sides.
On the ends who will stretch one way or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh man, it's so exciting. I look at the people who you have there, like who you've interviewed, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I kind of look when you wrote me a note, I looked over my shoulder like, yeah, this must be a wrong email.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Goodness gracious, he's not talking to me.
Yes, I am. We just did.
Yeah, no, and we
did a great
How cool
job,
is that?
and you provided seriously an awful lot to think about, and I just appreciate you doing this with me.
I'm happy to. I'll tell you guys out there, listen, this is the kind of a cool thing about Jed is that Yeah, here we go. Okay, in 1976, it's like that guy, the voice of the guy who does those voice. He always every time you hear his voice, someone's been murdered. Like.
What?
Those TV shows that have not unsolved mysteries, but forensic files or something.
Yeah.
Like when that guy talks, someone's dead every single time. Like he's never. It's always like on the night of July 11th on a lonely road. I'm like, I know this how this ends.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's dead.
Yeah, he didn't make it.
And we don't know what happened. It's kind of like it's one of those 20 questions. When you hear his voice and he's describing anything. Someone died. Oh. But when you wrote to me and you're like, well, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, I'm not even worried what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And actually that's the key, if I can give you a takeaway or anyone listening, is that I came unprepared for this. You and I had no precursor of where this conversation would go.
Not really.
And I think it's, to me, as an interviewee, it was completely seamless. Like there was never a lull that I was like, I don't know what I can say to him. And like it was a very easy conversation, which I think the fitting of conversations makes a lot of sense.
Good. I hope it comes across that way too. That's what I.
Yeah. And if you want to notch it up a little bit, I would call it conversatio. So that that way we have this like really Latin feeling, like it's a.
Oh, that's Latin. I was thinking Italian.
No, I don't know. Is it Italian?
Either way,
I think it's Latin. Conversatio with Jed Taufer.
I don't want to, but I want to be in the middle and get people on both ends to come in.
That's the way. That's actually So
Boom.
Convos.
That's my Instagram at Convo.
Is it really?
At this Convo. Sorry.
Hey, I'm really grateful for being here. I've always admired the folks you've interviewed, and I've always loved your interviews. And your nature is so clean and funny and fresh.
Thank you.
Love to be here. Thank you for having me.
It was great. Have a great rest of the convention.
You too. Talk to you guys later.